Good morning. Good morning. I know it's been a couple of weeks and we're back. So let's get into it. Can I ask you something? Did you actually learn from what you just went through? Be honest. Did that situation change you or just pass you? Welcome back to the Faith Infusion Podcast, where life gets real and so does our faith. Today, this isn't just about what God pulled you out of. It's about what that experience was meant to produce in you. Because a lot of us have stories to tell, but not enough change to show for that story. Today, I want to focus on Romans, the 5th chapter, 3rd verse through the 4th verse. It says, and I'm reading from the Amplified Version. It says, and not only this, but with joy, let us exult in our sufferings and rejoice in our hardships, knowing that hardship, distress, pressure, trouble produces patient endurance, and endurance, proven character, spiritual maturity, and proven character, hope and confident assurance of eternal salvation. Now, that's what this really comes down to. What you went through wasn't just about getting out of it or getting over it or getting past it. God was trying to do something in you. That's why today's podcast is simple. The breakthrough wasn't the lesson. So let's start there. Every season was trying to teach you something. That thing you went through, it wasn't random, it wasn't pointless, and it wasn't a waste of time. There was something in that season that God was trying to show you. And I think sometimes that's the part we miss, because when you're in the middle of something hard, you're usually not thinking about the lesson. You're just thinking about getting out of it. You're thinking about when it's going to be over. When is it going to end? You're thinking about how tired you are, how frustrated you are, and how bad you want things to shift. But a lot of times, while we're praying for God to bring us out, God is trying to show us what he wants to build in us. Take, for example, Naaman in 2 Kings, the 5th chapter. Naaman was a commander. He had position, he had respect, he had influence. From the outside, his life probably looked straight up solid, but even with all that, he still was dealing with leprosy. And that alone will preach. Because you can look fine on the outside and still be carrying something heavy in private. So Naaman goes looking for healing. And I'm sure in his mind, he expected God to do it in some big dramatic way. Something that matched who he thought he was. But instead, the instruction came back simple. Go wash in the Jordan 7 times. That's it. That's 2 Kings 5 and 10. He said, go wash in the Jordan 7 times. Now, Naaman didn't like that. Naaman was pissed. Naaman was upset. He was offended. He basically had an attitude because the answer didn't come the way he expected it to. Go to 2 Kings 5th chapter and 11th verse. And you'll see that he was angry because he thought it should have happened differently. And honestly, that's real. That's a real feeling. Because how many times have you wanted God to move, but got frustrated when his process didn't look like what you had in mind? We want healing, but not if it requires humility. We want breakthrough, but not if it means obedience. We want God to do something big, but sometimes he starts with something simple. And see, that's what Naaman had to learn. This wasn't just about his healing. It was also about his heart. Because sometimes God will use a season to deal with more than the obvious issue. Sometimes he'll use it to expose pride, impatience, control, or the parts of us that still want things our way. And if you're honest, you know that's you. Everybody wants things to go their way. Some of us more than others. Some of us think we have to have it our way. But sometimes God is trying to expose that prideful impatience and control that you think you have. And once Naaman humbled himself and did what he was told, he was healed. That's in 2 Kings 5:14. It says his flesh was restored. See, but to me, this story is bigger than his healing. This story shows you that sometimes the lesson in the season is learning how to trust God, even when his way feels uncomfortable, even when it feels too small, even when it doesn't match your expectations. That's why Romans, the 5th chapter, 3rd verse through the 4th verse matters so much, because it reminds us that what we go through is producing something within us. It says suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. So when you look back over what you went through, don't just say, God brought me out. Ask yourself, what was he trying to teach me while I was in it? Because if all you do is celebrate the fact that the problem or the struggle ended, you're going to miss what was meant to change in you. And sometimes the lesson is not just that God can bring you out. Sometimes the lesson is that he's trying to grow you up. He's trying to humble you and teach you how to trust him differently than before. Okay? Now let's go into, if you don't learn it, you'll live it again. And this is the part nobody really likes to talk about, because it's easier to say that was a hard season than to admit I didn't grow from that season. Because let's be real for a second. Some things don't leave your life because you prayed about them. They leave you when you learn from them. Because if the lesson doesn't stick, the cycle will. You'll see it again. Maybe not the exact same way, but it'll feel familiar. Same kind of relationships, same frustration, same kind of decisions, just different faces, same pattern. And I'm going to give you a prime example. You see this clearly with the children of Israel. I call them the can't ever get it right people. God brought them out of Egypt miraculously. That's in Exodus 14th chapter. God parted the Red Sea. God provided for them. God protected them. There was no question that God had delivered them. But the problem was, even though they were out of Egypt, Egypt was still in them. They kept complaining. They kept doubting God. They kept wanting to go back to what he brought them out of. Go back, go read Exodus 16:2-3. You were in bondage. God brought you out and you want to go back. And because of that, what should have been a short journey ended up turning into 40 years in the wilderness. Not because God couldn't get them there, but because they weren't ready. They weren't ready mentally, spiritually. They were not ready. They hadn't learned how to trust him yet. And if we're honest, sometimes we do the same thing. We ask God to bring us out. He does. And then we go right back to the same mindset, same habits, same reactions. And then we have the audacity to be confused when we end up in something that feels familiar. Because the truth is, God will allow you to revisit a lesson, okay, until you actually get it. And it's not to punish you. It's to grow you. Because he's not just concerned with where you are. He's concerned with who you are becoming on the way there. So the real question isn't just, why do I keep going through this? The better question is, what am I not learning? And because once the lesson clicks in your head and in your heart, you can break the cycle. I'm going to give you, I just went through this recently. You know, we preach about what we live. I realized I thought I had my temper under control. I've always had one. I was a devilish little something. But I thought I had got my temper under control. And some things were happening to some people that I care about. And that rage, that old anger that I thought I had grew past, it rose right back up. So something that I thought I had dealt with and learned from, something triggered it. But I realized after the breakthrough, it's still there. Now that's something that I'm going to have to begin to work on again. You're never finished growing. You're always going to be maturing. You're always going to be growing. But the thing is, when you see that something that you thought was gone is still there, you need to go and work on that. So now I'm back in the trenches working on my anger. Because God knows we don't want to go back there. Okay? I digress. Let's go back into the lesson. Now, I know breakthrough feels good, but growth is actually what's going to change you. Now, don't get me wrong. Breakthroughs feel good. When God comes through, when that pressure lifts off of you, when the door finally opens, listen, that deserves praise. I'm not saying it doesn't. That deserves praise. But see, here's the part we don't always sit with. Breakthrough is a moment. It's a moment. But growth is a decision. A lot of people experience the moment, but never commit to the growth of that moment. Because growth requires something different. Growth is going to require you to move differently, to think differently, to respond differently. Growth is not automatic. You actually have to choose to do it. Think about it like this. God can bring you out of something overnight, but changing your mindset, your habits, and the way you handle things, that takes intention. That takes work. That takes you saying, I'm not going back to who I used to be. And this is where that Romans 12:2 comes in. Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice it says transformed. That's not instant. That's ongoing. That's daily. Because if your mind doesn't change, your life won't either. You'll keep responding the same way. You'll keep making the same choices, ending up in the same situations. Don't look at God. You made that choice. You didn't learn from what you went through. And this is why some people say, God deliver me, girl. But they're still living like they're stuck. Because the situation changed, but they didn't. Growth is what says, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I see the red flags now. I'm choosing peace this time. I'm not reacting the way I used to. That's how you know the lesson actually stuck. Let's put it this way. If you go through something, just like I went through something recently, and then after it's over, you see something in your behavior or your attitude or your actions that says, oh, wait a minute, I thought that was gone. But see, you recognized it. That's the first step. You recognize, you saw the lesson. And here's the truth. God doesn't just want to keep bringing us out of stuff. He wants to bring you to a place where you don't even end up there anymore. So yes, celebrate the breakthrough, but don't stop there because the breakthrough may have opened the door, but growth is what keeps you from walking back through that same door. And just like I said, I realized that I had went back. I had picked up something that I thought I had been delivered from, but it was still in there. But I saw it. So now I'm going to work to fix it. So I learned my lesson, but I still need work. I'm telling you, the key is recognizing it. And today, I just don't want you to hear this. I need you to feel this, because this is one of those moments that calls for you to be honest with yourself. Nobody's around. It's just you and me. But be honest with yourself. Not just about what you've been through, but about what it produced in you. Because when you really think about it, some of you have survived things that should have broken you. Things that, if you're honest, you didn't even know how you were going to make it through. But look at it. You've made it through seasons that drained you, that stretched you, that tested you in ways nobody else even saw. There were moments you were tried, moments you questioned everything, moments you felt like giving up, and somehow you're still here. And yes, God was with you. Yes, He brought you through. Yes, He made a way. No doubt about it. We're not doubting that. But hear me. God didn't do all of that just so you can say, I made it. Because making it through was never the final goal. He did it so something in you would shift. So the way you think wouldn't be the same anymore. So you wouldn't keep settling for what you used to accept. So your discernment would be sharper this time, where you see things differently sooner. So your faith wouldn't just be words, but something deeper, something rooted. When you've really been through something with God, it should change how you move. It should change what you tolerate. It should change what you go back to. You shouldn't come out of that season the same version of yourself that you went in. And I really feel this because some of you have been giving yourself credit for surviving, but you haven't stopped to ask if you've actually shifted, because all you were focused on was surviving. And I know survival, it gets you through it. But transformation is what makes sure you don't end up back there again. And that's the part God is after, not just your testimony. God's after your transformation. Because what you went through carried weight. It carried purpose. It carried a lesson that had the power to break cycles, to heal patterns, and move you into a different version of yourself. And I really feel this. Some of you are standing at a point right now. You can either keep repeating what feels familiar, or you can finally apply what God has been trying to show you. You can keep going through things, or you can start growing through them, because growth isn't loud. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes growth is choosing peace when you used to react. Sometimes it's walking away when you used to stay. Sometimes it's being quiet when you used to argue. Sometimes it's trusting God when you used to panic. That's growth. That's transformation. That's evidence that the lesson actually reached you. And here's the part I don't want you to miss. God trusted you with the season. He trusted you with that season. He trusted that what you went through wouldn't just break you, it would build you. That it wouldn't just hurt you, it would help you become who you're called to be. So don't waste it. Don't rush past it. Don't reduce it to just a testimony you tell. And you miss the transformation that you're supposed to be living. Because the breakthrough, that was just God bringing you out. But the lesson is that God was trying to bring you up. Take a moment, reflect, be honest, and make a decision. Say, I'm not just moving on from this. I'm going to grow from this. So here's what I want to leave you with. The next time you think about what God brought you through, don't just stop at, I made it. Go a step further and ask yourself, what changed in me because of it? Because if nothing shifted, if nothing grew, if nothing looks different, then there's still more for you to get from that season. And that's not condemnation. That's an invitation. That's an invitation to grow, an invitation to be better, an invitation to finally break cycles that have been following you for far too long. So don't just move on from what you thought you went through. Grow from it. Let it refine you. Let it mature you. Let it push you into a version of yourself that doesn't go back to what God already brought you out of. Because the breakthrough, that's what God's bringing you out of. But the lesson, that's what keeps you from going backwards. That's what keeps you from going back. Remember that. The lesson is what's going to keep you from going back. This is the Faith Infusion podcast where life gets real and so does our faith. If this message found you at the right time, don't hesitate to share it with someone else. And that God didn't just bring you through it so you could say you survived. God brought you through it so you could come out wiser, stronger, more aware, and more grounded in your faith than you were before. He wanted to grow you through it. He wanted to teach you through it. He wanted to use that very season to shape you into who you need to be for what's next. So don't just thank God for bringing you out. Ask Him to show you what He was building in you. And with that, this is Minister Demetria Lee, and you've been listening to the Faith Infusion podcast. Until next week, stay grounded, stay growing, and don't forget, every season you go through has something in it for you. I'll see you next week.